Hello everyone, and welcome to the channel. You think you know the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, a simple, straightforward tale of two cities, so wicked, so sinful, that God erased them from the face of the earth with fire and brimstone. It's a story told to children to teach them about right and wrong. But what if that version is a pale shadow of the terrifying truth? What if the sin of Sodom wasn't just about human behavior, but about what if the angels who walked into that city weren't just messengers, but divine warriors on a search and destroy mission against an ancient evil? Today we pull back the veil on the story your Sunday school left out. This is the full, uncensored story of the destruction of Sodom. Our story begins not in a wicked city, but under the quiet shade of the great trees of Mamre, near the tent of a man named Abram. Soon to Abraham is resting, a patriarch in the prime of his life, a man who has walked away from everything he knew based on a promise from a God he couldn't see. He looks up, and suddenly they are there. Three men. They don't arrive with a thunderclap or a chorus of angels. They simply appear as if stepping from one reality into ours. There is an aura about them, an unsettling stillness. A weight. Abraham, filled with an instinct that transcends mortal understanding, knows he is in the presence of something holy. He doesn't hesitate. He runs, he bows, he prostrates himself, offering water, rest, and food. He is not just being a good host, he is acknowledging a power that could unmake him with a thought. Two of these figures are angels, beings of pure spirit forged in celestial fire, now veiled in cloaks as they share a meal, a strange and sacred communion between the mortal and the divine. The conversation turns. The Lord reaffirms his promise to Abraham and Sarah, a son in their old age. Sarah, listening from the tent, laughs a laugh of disbelief, of a woman whose hope has long since withered. And the Lord hears her. "Is anything too hard for the Lord?" he asks. It's not just a question about a child. The casual miracle of a promised son is set against the terrifying miracle of utter destruction that is to come. It is a stark reminder, the same hand that creates can also annihilate. As the beings rise to leave, their gaze turns south, toward the fertile plain of the Jordan, where the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah glitter like jewels in the sun. But the Lord sees something else. He sees a darkness. He says to Abraham, "The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great and their sin so grievous that I will go down and see if what they have done is as bad as the outcry that has reached me." This outcry isn't just the complaint of oppressed people. In the original language, it's a shriek, a scream of reality itself being twisted out of shape. The sin of these cities is so profound that it is wounding the very fabric. This is the moment the story truly pivots. The Lord reveals his intention to Abraham, treating him not as a servant, but as a confidant, a friend, and Abraham, the mortal man, does something astonishing. He steps forward, he stands before the infinite, and he begins to bargain. "Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked?" he asks. This isn't arrogance, it is a desperate. He is not just trying to save his nephew Lot who lives in Sodom. He's asking a question that echoes through eternity: is there a place for mercy within absolute power? He bargains God down, from 50 righteous people to 45, to 40, to 30, to 20, and finally down to 10. For the sake of 10, the Lord says, "I will not destroy it." Imagine the tension of Abraham, a speck of dust standing before the whirlwind of creation, holding it back with his words, with his plea for a justice that is tempered by compassion. When the Lord departs, a heavy silence falls. Abraham has done all he can. The fate of the cities now rests on a razor's edge. It rests on whether 10 good souls can be found in a metropolis teeming with thousands. The two angels, their purpose now clear, and their journey into the heart of darkness has begun. As the two angels walk, the world around them seems to hold its breath. They move with a purpose that is both silent and terrifying. They are walking intersections of heaven and earth, celestial power cloaked in the guise of mortal travelers. The air grows still. The cries of wild animals fade. The setting sun casts long, ominous shadows that seem to flee from their feet. They arrive at the gates of Sodom as evening descends, painting the sky in hues of fire and blood, a prophetic canvas for the dawn that will follow. And there, sitting at the gate, is Lot, Abraham's nephew. Lot is a man living in a gilded cage. He came to Sodom for its wealth, its prosperity, its promise of an easy life. But he has found himself in a beautiful nightmare. He is a righteous man in an unrighteous land, and the strain is written on his face. When Lot sees the two strangers, he recognizes them instantly, not as angels perhaps, but as something other, something pure. In a city where every face wears a mask of predatory desire, their faces are serene, clear, and powerful. He sees in them everything his city is not. His reaction is immediate and desperate, like Abraham. He runs. You can wash your feet and spend the night and then go on your way early in the morning. This is more than just the customary hospitality of the East. This is a man trying to shield a candle flame in a hurricane. He knows what his city is. He knows what it does to strangers, to the innocent, to anything that is different. He is trying to hide the light before the darkness can find it and extinguish it. They initially refuse. No. They say will the city tolerate their presence? But Lot insists, pleading with an urgency that borders on panic. He understands the public square in Sodom is not a place of community. It is a hunting ground. Reluctantly, they agree and follow him to his house. He prepares a feast, bakes bread without yeast, a meal of haste, a meal for those who are about to flee for a few brief moments. Within the walls of Lot's home, the city has smelled the blood in the water. It has sensed the presence of purity, and its only instinct is to defile it. Before they have even lain down to rest, the house is surrounded. It begins as a murmur, then grows to a roar. The men of the city, every single one of them, from the youngest boy to the oldest man from every part of the city, are at the door. Think about that. This isn't a small group of troublemakers. They pound on the door, the rhythmic, thunderous noise of a collective, monstrous will. They call out to Lot, their voices dripping with a chilling mixture of mockery and command. Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us so that we can know them. Let's be clear about what know them means. This is not a request for an introduction. It is a demand for violent, ritualistic degradation. It is that they want to consume the otherness of these visitors, to break them, to taint their purity, and absorb their light into the city's all-consuming darkness. This is the very essence of Sodom's sin. It is not just lust. It is a predatory, insatiable hunger to corrupt and destroy anything good, anything holy, anything that reminds them of a moral order they have long since abandoned. It is a sin against God and if you find this part of the story disturbing, please consider hitting that like button to let us know you are engaged with this deep dive into one of history's most chilling tales. Your support helps us continue to explore these complex and powerful narratives. Lot, trapped between the divine and the demonic, steps outside, closing the door behind him to protect his guests. He stands alone before the snarling mob, and he makes a desperate horror. Look, I have 2 daughters who have never known a man. Let me bring them out to you, and you can do what you like with them. But don't do anything to these men, for they have come under the protection of my roof. This is the measure of Lot's terror. He is willing to sacrifice his own flesh and blood to appease the beast at his door, to uphold his sacred duty as a host. It is a moment of complete moral collapse, demonstrating how living in Sodom has warped even a righteous. The mob scoffs at him. "Get out of our way," they yell. "This fellow came here as a foreigner, and now he wants to play the judge. We'll treat you worse than them." They surge forward, intent on breaking down the door, on devouring Lot and his guests whole. The last bastion of civility is about to be overrun. The city of Sodom has just signed its own death warrant, not on a piece of paper, but with the collective. The mob surges forward, their faces twisted into masks of rage and corrupted desire. The wooden door groans under their weight. Lot is thrown back, his pleas lost in the roar of the crowd. This is it, the end. The darkness is about to flood in and consume the last spark of light in the city. But then, in an instant, everything changes. The door is pulled open from within. Strong hands grip Lot, yanking him. The time for observation is over. The time for action has come. Through the thick wood of the door, the angels hear the mob's renewed fury. But the angels don't speak. They don't have to. They reach out, not with their hands, but with their will, and they strike the entire crowd with blindness. This is not a simple medical condition. The text says it was a bewildering blindness. The men outside are plunged into a world of sense. They grope and stumble, pushing and shoving, their wicked intent still burning, but their ability to act on it completely nullified. They weary themselves trying to find the door, a mob reduced to a pathetic, confused rabble, their own evil desires turning them into a laughing stock for the cosmos. It's a moment of profound, terrifying irony. They who wish to violate the sanctity of others have had the sanctity of their inside. The chaos outside fades into a muffled background noise. The air is still and heavy with unspoken power. The two visitors turn to Lot, and the veil of their human disguise begins to fall away. Their eyes glow with a faint internal light. Their voices, when they speak, carry the echo of celestial authority. "Do you have anyone else here?" they ask. Sons-in-law, sons or daughters, or anyone. The words hang in the air, each one a hammer blow of finality. We are going to destroy this place. There is no room for negotiation. There is no appeal. The verdict has been rendered, the outcry of the land has reached the Lord, and the time for judgment is now. The angels are revealing their true purpose. They are not travelers, they are destroyers. They are the instruments of a divine surgical strike. He had feared the men of the city, but the quiet, absolute power of his guests is infinitely more terrifying. He rushes out into the disoriented city, a prophet of doom in a town that has forgotten what fear of God means. He finds his sons-in-law, the men betrothed to his daughters. He relays the warning, his voice filled with the desperate urgency of a man who has looked into the eyes of judgment. "Hurry and get out." They think he's joking. How could this be? The city is rich, powerful, and secure. The party has been going on for so long, they can't imagine it ever ending. It's a timeless human tragedy, the inability to recognize the precipice until you are already falling. As the first hint of dawn paints the eastern sky, the angel's patience wears thin. The destruction is on a divine timetable, and it will not wait for human hesitation. Take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, or you will be swept away when the city is punished. But even now, with the promise of annihilation hanging over his head, Lot hesitates. He is leaving his home, his wealth, his entire life. The gilded cage, even a corrupt one, is hard to leave. Seeing his hesitation, the angels act with divine force. The scripture says they were merciful. They are literally pulling them into salvation against their own weakened wills. It is a powerful image of grace, a salvation that is not just offered, but sometimes has to be forced upon us when we are too weak or too attached to our own destruction to save ourselves. Once they are safely outside the city limits, the command is given, sharp and absolute. Flee for your lives. Don't look back, and don't stop anywhere. To look back at Sodom is to allow its corruption to reclaim your heart. To linger in the plain is to remain within its blast radius, both physically and spiritually. But Lot, ever the negotiator, is still afraid. "No, my lords, please," he begs. "Your servant has found favor in your eyes, and you have shown great kindness to me in sparing my life. But I can't flee to the mountains. Let me flee to it. It is very small, isn't it? Then my life will be spared." He wants a smaller, more manageable version of the life he knew. He is granted his request. The city will be called Zoar, meaning small. The angel says, "Very well, I will grant this request too, but flee there quickly because I cannot do anything until you reach it." The entire cosmic event, the decreation of a region, the sun is rising, the clock is ticking, the final act is about to begin. The sun had risen over the land. A new day was dawning, just like any other. Birds began to sing. The morning air was cool and crisp. For the inhabitants of Sodom and Gomorrah, waking from their night of debauchery, it was just another morning in paradise. They were completely unaware that they had no future. They had laughed off. From his vantage point on a distant mountain, Abraham stood, looking toward the plain. He was returning to the place where he had stood before the Lord, his heart heavy with dread, hoping against hope that 10 righteous souls had been found. Lot and his daughters were running, their lungs burning, their eyes fixed on the small city of Zoar. And then it began. This was not a normal fire. This was no earthquake, no volcano. This was a direct, targeted, overwhelming act of decreation. The sky didn't just darken, it tore open. From the rift in reality poured not rain, but liquid judgment. It was a storm of fire and brimstone, a substance that burns with an unnatural heat, consuming everything it touches and poisoning the very air with its fumes. Imagine the sight. The rivers of molten rock and celestial flame cascade down, not in a random pattern, but with terrible precision, blanketing the cities and the entire plain. The beautiful buildings, the proud towers, the lush gardens that had been the envy of the known world. They vaporize in an instant. Stone melts like wax. The very ground liquefies, turning the foundation of the cities into a boiling, sulfuric sea, and the sound. It would have been a deafening, continuous roar, the sound of a world being unmade. The screams of the people would have been swallowed by the cataclysm, a brief, final outcry from a people who had become an outcry themselves. This was not merely a punishment. It was a scouring, a cleansing. The land was so saturated with spiritual corruption that it had to be sterilized by heavenly fire, burned. Everything that grew in the plain, all the vegetation was incinerated. The very soil was rendered barren for generations to come. God was not just destroying two cities, he was performing a radical surgery on the face of the earth, cutting out a malignant tumor with a blade of fire. If you're finding this depiction of raw, mythological power as gripping as I do, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. We are committed to explore. As Lot and his daughters flee, they can feel the heat at their backs, hear the roar that swallows all other sound. The angel's command echoes in their minds. Flee for your lives, don't look back. It is a simple instruction with profound implications. To move forward into a new life, you must be willing to completely let go of the old one, especially when the old one was a place of bondage and death. Lot and his... We are never told her name. She is defined by her final fatal action. She hesitates. Her feet keep moving, but her heart is still back in Sodom. Perhaps she was thinking of her home filled with beautiful things. Perhaps she was thinking of her friends, her social status, perhaps her sons-in-law who had refused to leave. Her entire life, her identity, everything she had ever known, was being consumed in that inferno behind her. And in that instant, the judgment that is falling on Sodom falls on her. The fiery, sulfuric rain touches her, and her body is instantly fossilized. She becomes a pillar of salt. It's a strange and specific fate. Salt is a preservative. She is not just killed. She is preserved as an eternal monument to the danger of looking back. She becomes a crystallized statue of regret. She stands there, a silent, stark white figure on the edge of the blasted plain, a warning for all time. Don't let your attachment to a toxic past rob you of the life you are running toward. From his mountain, Abraham sees it. He looks toward Sodom and Gomorrah and sees dense smoke rising from the land like smoke from a furnace. He sees the evidence of the judgment he tried to prevent. The cities are gone, but the text adds a crucial detail. God remembered Abraham, and he brought Lot out of the catastrophe that overthrew the cities where Lot had lived. Abraham's intercession did not save the city, because the city was beyond saving, but it did save his family. His desperate plea before the throne of God had succeeded. Mercy had found a foothold, even in the midst of overwhelming destruction. So, what are we to... But the story itself, when you look deeper, points to a much more profound and frightening reality. The prophet Ezekiel, centuries later, would define the sin of Sodom this way. She and her daughters were arrogant, overfed and unconcerned. They did not help the poor and needy. This wasn't just about one specific act. It was a complete societal collapse of empathy. It was a culture of radical, predatory selfishness, where the strong consumed the weak, and hospitality, the most sacred duty of the ancient world, was twisted into a weapon of violation. Their sin was a state of being, a spiritual cancer that had metastasized until the entire city was rotten to its core. The prosperity of the city wasn't a sign of blessing, it was the fruit of a profound... The angels who came to visit weren't just checking in. They were a divine litmus test. The city's reaction to them, its immediate universal desire to consume and defile them, was the final proof that the infection was total. There were not 10 righteous people left. There was only one family, and even they were deeply scarred by their time in that place. The destruction that followed was not an act of a capricious, angry God. The story suggests that evil is not just a series of bad choices, it is a force, an influence that can corrupt and saturate a place, a culture, and a people so completely that the only solution is to burn it out, to remove it from the system, so it cannot spread. This is mythology in its rawest, most primal form. It deals with concepts of purity and corruption, of divine order, and the fire and brimstone are not just punishment. They are a form of spiritual chemotherapy, a violent, painful treatment to save the larger organism of the world. And the story of Lot's wife is perhaps the most personal and piercing message in the entire narrative. It's a warning that resonates powerfully even today. How many of us flee a destructive situation, a bad relationship, a toxic job, an unhealthy lifestyle? We look back. We romanticize the prison we escaped. We miss the familiar comforts of our gilded cage. And in doing so, we risk becoming pillars of salt, frozen in place by our nostalgia for a past that was actively destroying us. This ancient, terrifying story is not just about a city that was destroyed. It is a timeless allegory. We all have potential Sodoms in our lives, places of comfort and prosperity that are spiritually barren, relationships that seem attractive but are built on selfishness, habits that promise pleasure but lead only to emptiness. The story challenges us to ask a difficult question: what is the Sodom in my life? And do I have the courage to listen when the warning comes? Do I have the strength to flee without hesitation, to leave? Sometimes salvation isn't a gentle invitation, it is being pulled from the fire. The key is that when you are pulled free, you must keep moving forward. You must run toward your Zoar, your small place of safety, and leave the smoke and the ruin behind you. True freedom, the story tells us, is not just about escaping the fire, it's about refusing to be mesmerized by its glow. Alright, that is all for today's video. It is a narrative that challenges us, disturbs us, and ultimately offers a powerful message about the courage to leave destruction behind. If you found this exploration valuable, please subscribe and give this video a like to support the channel. Your engagement helps us create more content like this. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.